Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for viewing this morning. This is a public briefing being chaired by Mr. Ralph Thorne, the leader of the Opposition Democratic Labour Party and the political leader of the Opposition Democratic Labour Party. This morning, after Mr. Thorne speaks, you'll be hearing from some of our other spokespersons, but I'll introduce you to them later. I now hand you over to the political leader and opposition leader, Mr. Ralph Thorne. Mr. Thorne?
Thank you, Sally. Let me acknowledge the presence of my colleagues, some of the spokespersons on various matters that involve the government. Let me say good morning to Barbadians at home and in the diaspora. Indeed, we consider the diaspora home as well. So welcome to everyone. This morning, as we have been doing before, the focus will not be on one person, but we want to project ourselves to Barbadians as a team. And that's why we've assembled a part of the team here this morning to deal with the pressing matters that confront Barbadians at this time. And I say at this time with particular meaning, because I don't recall in my adult life, certainly, witnessing the kind of crisis that is afflicting this society. I mean, it's a severe crisis. Just about every one of our public institutions is experiencing crisis. And when I say public institutions, this morning we have here our spokespersons on labor, agriculture, on health, and education. Every one of our institutions is experiencing the most severe crisis that we have witnessed, certainly, as I said before, in my adult life. I did not have a sense that our society was in such peril, even when I was a child. And the government must take much responsibility for this. As I said last week elsewhere, in some countries, even the constitutions speak of the pursuit of happiness as a goal among its populations. If we are to pursue happiness in this country, it seems that we have to travel the road of misery. There's a lot of misery in Barbados. People are just unhappy. You meet people in public spaces, you meet people in the private circumstances, and there's a gloom and a dread and an unhappiness that is confronting and afflicting the lives of Barbadians. Who must take the responsibility for this? The government has to take, and we are unabashed about saying this, the government has to take a lot of the blame, the dread, despair that has visited the lives of Barbadians. As I said, all of our institutions seem to be in crisis. And how is the government dealing with this? I think the government, through its party, the Barbados Labour Party, is holding its annual conference this weekend. And what have you heard about that conference? How is that conference intending to appeal to Barbadians? They have told you nothing about their philosophy, they've told you nothing about their vision, they've told you nothing about their mission for Barbados. They're trying to get people to attend that conference through karaoke. Now, we have nothing against karaoke, but when a government in office seriously intends to appeal to people and to get people to make themselves present at a conference through karaoke, there is something fundamentally wrong in government. When we come to you as an opposition party, if it is God's will that we should come to you as a government, we will certainly come to you intending to confront serious issues and to confront issues seriously. And we reject this notion that every appeal to the people of this country must be made through entertainment. People's lives are experiencing much difficulty, and we want the government to take the lives of people seriously. I understand, and I hope this is a rumor, I hope it is untrue. I understand that they're holding the conference at a public school foundation in Christchurch. And the rumor went abroad yesterday that they painted or they have the floor in red. Now, I don't know if that is right. I haven't seen it myself. But that is a rumor that has gone abroad yesterday. That They painted the Global Foundation School, made the Global Foundation School. And we have to be careful as a democratic country that we're not slipping into fascism. That everything the government engages in, everything it does, every public appeal must find itself quoted in red. They certainly did it down the hill a few weeks ago. So even if it is untrue at foundation, and we as freedom loving people all hope that it is not true. I mean, I cannot believe that the government would be this indiscreet and so bent on violating principles of freedom and decency that they would do this. So let's hope that it is not true. What we know is true is that when they purported to be renovating Oistins in the amount of $5 million, that has become a bit of a joke, even among the people who occupied those places in Oistins. We know that they painted it red. They painted even a well cap painted red. They gave out tents to the vendors. They were. We've addressed this before. But the point being made here is that a government must not behave like a fascist government. A government must not try to bring these symbols to people that reflects party paramountcy, that reflects fascism, that reflects the cult of the personality, that everything is to reflect the party. National symbols and national events must reflect the society, the country, and not a party. So those are concerns that we have as to the direction in which this government is going. We feel that it has lost its way. We feel that on the issue of morality, we feel that this country is adrift. I probably should not say this, but I will say it as a note of caution to the citizens of this country, because nobody is prepared to tell the truth and to tell the citizens of this country to reshape or reprogram themselves morally. And when you find people giving interviews and speaking of criminality within the context of moral, justifying criminality, something is seriously wrong in your country, and nobody in government has addressed that. It was a statement made a few days ago. It is unfortunate. It's an unhappy statement. It is a statement that reflects, without criticizing the person who uttered it in an interview, it is a statement that reflected the general state of unhappiness, the general state of moral drift in this country. And we say that the government must take a lot of the blame. Now, we come to you, as I said before, as a team seriously interested in correcting the ills in this society, and not only correcting the ills in this society, but embracing people in their lowest moments. And 2 Saturdays ago, we went to St. Lucie, right? Not in any patronizing way, but also to find out what was the plight of the people that we delivered water. One lady told us she pays $800 a month in purchasing water. Now, that is not a satisfactory state of affairs. She gets water piped to her house, but she has to buy water. And maybe because some of us don't live in those circumstances, for us it is not a problem. But we want to say to the people of Barbados here and in the diaspora that St. Lucie has slipped into a severe crisis of a water shortage. Although there's water in the taps, we cannot say to the people in St. Lucie that it is potable water, that it's water that they should drink. We don't know what health issues will arise in the aftermath of what is called groundwater down there. So that as a party, we feel a sense of responsibility. We feel that what we can do, we must do.
Yes.
And this week, we have sent a letter to the Barbados Water Authority asking them to, if they cannot fix the problem immediately, and it is unreasonable to expect that they can fix the problem immediately, but what they can do, they can exercise forgiveness in relation to the payment of bills. And when I use the word forgiveness, I am not speaking as if there are legal implications. There are legal implications here. When I speak of forgiveness, I am speaking contract. And Neil is a lawyer. Amoy is a lawyer as well. And they will tell you that the government is in breach of its contract to deliver potable water to the people of St. Lucie, certainly in domestic households. So that in reinforcing that legal position that we take. We have written a letter to the Barbados Water Authority on behalf of the residents of St. Lucie. The signatories to that letter, I have a copy of it here. The signatories are Mr. Alvin Toppin, he is the Democratic Labour Party spokesperson on culture. Mr. Pedro Shepherd, he is our party spokesperson on public works. Ms. Berta Pisa, she is our party spokesperson on legal affairs, and my signature also appears on the letter as leader of the opposition. Permit me then to make public this letter and to make public the content of this letter, because we intend that this missive sent to the Barbados Water Authority should not remain a private transaction. We want Barbadians to know what they're doing. We want Barbadians to know what we're doing. We have people of St. Lucie who are entitled to fair treatment as the people in St. Philip, people in Christchurch, people all over Barbados. So that without apology to Barbados Water Authority or to the government, I am going to make public this letter, which is dated the 15th of October, and I'm going to make public the content of the letter. I think Barbadians need to know where we stand in relation to this. I think Barbadians need to know what are their rights, certainly in relation to statutory corporations. This is how the letter reads. Please permit me. Really understand, and those understand the four persons to whom I referred earlier, write to you, and it is addressed to the General Manager of the Barbados Water Authority at the time, St. Michael. We, the undersigned, write to you on behalf of the householders of St. Lucie who have been receiving discolored and contaminated water through their pipes from Barbados Water Authority. We advise that the distribution of this quality of water constitutes a fundamental contractual breach and a breach of Barbados Water Authority's statutory duty to provide a supply of potable water that is fit for domestic purposes. We contend that it represents a fundamental breach by Barbados Water Authority of its contract with the subscribers, since it is not known what may be the short-term or long-term medical consequences of their use and consumption of this water. Circumstances therefore constrain us to ask Barbados Water Authority to cease to send bills for payment to all those householders / subscribers while this situation continues. We advise that they are within their legal rights to make this demand. Please let it be understood that all other rights are reserved herein, and that in any event, they will be advised as to further recourse faithfully, and the four signatures will appear on that letter. As I said, in the company of two good lawyers, and they will endorse the position and new research to Barbados Water Authority legislation, providing me with the relevant section, the people of St. Lucie. There must be no patronizing treatment of them. They must not expect that Barbadians should be driving down there over the next year or 18 months delivering water to them. They have been paying for water service, and the Water Authority has been in breach of that contract to deliver water to them. Therefore, we are asking the Water Authority with immediate effect to cease to send bills to them, not as any moral exchange, but in pursuance of their legal rights. So that is the kind and the quality of work that we are offering to Barbadians as an opposition. We'd like to say that we criticize what the state criticizing. Whenever you go to the State House resorted, the president always tells you that in opposition, we will provide constructive opposition, and that is what we intend to do. We intend to meet the injunction of Her Excellency, the head of state of this country, in providing constructive opposition when constructive opposition is needed. And so we stand in defense of Lucie. Not all of them have been affected, but certainly those ones around Craft Hill, I think that is the main area in which they've been affected. We stand in their defense today. We stand in defense of a country that is in a severe crisis. That crisis is in Lucie. It's only symptomatic of what is happening generally across Barbados. For school children, we do have our spokesperson here on education today. I do not usurp anything. It's to John Keynes to say or will say but she obviously will highlight some of the problems in education. We have never quite seen it like this in health. Senator Ward will highlight some of the problems in health, agriculture. Gilbert Bourne will highlight some of those problems, and in labor, Mr. Neil Marshall will highlight some of those problems. Again, we come to you as a team. I feel honored and humbled to be asked to exercise leadership on this team. But focus is not on leadership, the focus is on the team, and therefore, Ms. Annie, it is my pleasure to pass back to you at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thorne. We now go over to Ms. Felicia Dujon, our spokesman on education.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Barbadians. It is a deep pleasure to be here, but at the same time, I'm deeply concerned what is happening in the education system currently. There is a troubling pattern of reactive leadership within the Ministry of Education, and I'm hoping that at some point they will have the kinds of intervention that is needed. As our opposition leader have highlighted, we are here on behalf of our citizens, but primarily I'm here on behalf of teachers, students, and parents. Parents have been contacting me daily on various matters, various concerns within the schools, within the communities, primarily relating to schools. And what is very troubling for me is that within those various constituents, there are MPs that are responsible for the constituents. And the question that I may want to ask this morning, what has the MPs been doing over the summer vacation that they themselves did not realize that the schools within their constituents were not prepared? They were not concerned about the constituents, the very young constituents that have to go to school. And what we're seeing, and it's very, as I said before, it's very alarming because I have visited, and as you know, I've visited many of the schools across the island. We still have a problem with security at schools. Let's be very mindful. The Ministry of Education, through the Minister of Education, advised the country and informed the country and reassured the country that every school would have received a security guard. They would have had security posted at every school. And let me remind our fellow citizens, that has not happened. I am still receiving calls from parents and teachers. They've had various incidents, violent incidents, where persons from the public ran through schools with weapons, placing our children at risk. And I do not know what it will take for the Minister of Education to realize the serious crisis that we are dealing with in the education system. In addition, the infrastructure. I remember a few weeks before, we, the Democratic Labour Party, came and informed the public that the schools were not prepared. We informed the public that. We were honest with you. We knew that certain schools were not prepared. We came to you. In some cases, I risked my liberty by going to the schools and ensuring that I inform you as to what is happening. But the Minister of Education again gave false reassurances that the schools were prepared. Look at what we're having now. Look at what we are dealing with now. Every week, every day, parents have to leave their jobs to collect their students, to collect their children at school. We cannot continue that way. We have to be very mindful that most of parents, some of them, they do not have the opportunity to leave their jobs and collect their children. Where are they going to place the children? Where are they going to place them? These are very serious concerns that the Minister of Education and the CEO do not understand. That parents have the responsibility not only to care for the children, but if they're at work, they have to leave their jobs. Sometimes after 10. These are the concerns, and I believe the very serious matter that we are dealing with is the matter of management. The leadership of that ministry needs to be revamped. And the minister responsible for civil servants, I don't know what she's been doing, but she must take in consideration as to what is happening with this ministry. Because we, the opposition party, has not been the only person speaking. Parents have been coming to the public domain. Teachers have been coming to the public domain. Even students have been coming to the public domain. So there is a very serious problem that is occurring. And we are hoping that school will be closing very soon for the Christmas vacation. So hopefully they will be doing what is necessary. But my great concern is that the students that are now at home doing online classes. It was brought to my attention that the devices that the students, the first formers are using, some of them, they do not know how to use them. There was no training as to how to use those devices. And if we are in an environment where we are teaching children about technology and we want them to grasp the knowledge, it is important that we give both teachers and students the training that they need. We cannot give them devices and they do not know how to use them. Not even the parents know how to use them. We are placing the education of our children at risk by persons that are more reactive than proactive in doing their jobs. We are hoping, in addition, that the ministry informed us that they would have had safety securities or safety officers at school. What we're seeing online is a very good image as to what the ministry has failed to do. We are still students are still fighting at school. We're still students are being harmed, injured at school. No parents want to live that kind of experience. To know that their child went to school very healthy and happy and had to be called at a polyclinic that their child has been injured. Where are the safety officers? Where are the safety or the security guards? We understand that you said that those will be implemented, but we need to know exactly when is it going to be fully implemented in schools, and not just some schools, all schools. We cannot discriminate against any school at this point. We cannot risk the life of any of our children because we fail to put proper mechanisms in place so that our students and teachers could be in an environment which is safe. We will continue to do what we are required to do. It is our job, it is our mandate. I will be visiting the school. It is my job, it is my duty. And how fast I get there, I don't know. By the will of God, I will get there. Because what is very important is that we will come back and respond to the public because you gave us the responsibility to act upon your behalf. And as advocates for the people, we will be at every school when the opportunity is there. When something happens, we are there. Sometimes you call the office, sometimes you call us directly, but we are there. And we're going to hold the ministry to task. There is no sense of accountability because what we're seeing, parents are concerned, teachers are concerned, the education system is in a crisis. We need a crisis management plan for the Ministry of Education because we cannot continue. We cannot go another term like this. Our children are the ones who are being suffered by this incident because what would happen? Those students that now cannot be at school, they are missing out on the curriculum. They are missing out because now the other schools, their parents may be at other levels. When they're not, they're at home. Some of them do not have the devices. Some of them do not have internet. Have we checked on that? The feasibility of having our children at home. The environmental concerns. All of those issues were highlighted. We informed the public that these are matters that were urgently needed to look into, but that was not done. And several weeks later, we almost to the end of the term, and schools are shutting down. Environmental problems. Grantley Adams is closed, and we do not know when our students will return. Our students, our teachers are the ones who are suffering, and most importantly, our parents. Parents are frustrated. At this point, they do not know where to turn. But we are doing our best. We are trying to provide the kinds of intervention. We are providing solutions to the ministry. And as the Education Commission, we have been meeting so that we can provide a report to the minister responsible for civil servants. So hopefully something can be done very urgently in the Ministry of Education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jujan. We move on now to our spokesperson on agriculture, Amoy Gilden-Bourne.
Hello, good morning, everyone. As a spokesperson on agriculture, we've seen a lot of the issues hampering farmers in the media of recent. And it is very concerning to me, and too many issues to talk about today, but I would like to comment on the milk or the importation of milk rather. Many persons that have interacted with me are wondering why we are importing milk. And while I understand that Barbados, as a member of CARICOM, has certain obligations under the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, which free movement of services and goods across border states between member states, I understand that. However, there needs to be greater consideration as to the impact that imported milk would have on local production of the milk. It's concerning that we don't have the better fail-safes in place so that we don't leave our dairy industry behind. And essentially that looks like that is what is going on. We must be concerned that we can't just simply import another product because of it's more economical. We have to balance that against the economic viability that milk production domestically has in terms of creation of jobs and injection into the economy, the Barbadian economy. Sustaining our dairy industry is tantamount. Barbados cannot be an island of consumers alone. We must do better. And it's unfortunate also that there was a lack of communication or consultation with the Barbadian dairy farmers, because it reeks of disrespect for stakeholders who spent a substantial amount of money in their dairy operations, only to have the government undermine that by importing milk from Guyana. And on top of that, there are also some other questions persons have been asking me, and with respect to the quality of the milk that is coming into our borders. Now, while we know that Pine Hill Dairy has high standards in terms of the quality of milk, we don't have any figures or any information with respect to the milk that's coming in. And should that milk not be available for Guyanese consumption for Guyanese citizens, the question then is, why are we using it for Barbadians? Why is it okay for consumption for Barbadian consumers? So those are some questions that I'd like the minister to address. At the end of the day, while we are going to import milk, we see products on our shelves from different CARICOM countries. Less so do you see Barbadian products on shelves in other CARICOM countries. And that's something that we have to be concerned about. We have to make sure that home drums beat first, and we have to make sure that our dairy industry is in a position where we can afford to import milk from other Caribbean countries without it negatively affecting the economy in Barbados and the farmers, the dairy milk farmers. And one other issue that persons have been coming to me and asking me a lot about is the medicinal marijuana industry. Recently, there was a seminar at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center, and I was in attendance, and I want to be brutally honest. There was a lot of pomp and pageantry, but it is a continuation of this government's current cart before the horse way of doing things. And that way of doing things will not work, especially with a new industry like the medicinal marijuana industry. We heard people or the CEOs from the cannabis licensing authorities from Antigua, from St. Vincent, from Jamaica, Bahamas, and all of them have cited the same problems. Lack of access to banking services and lack of support from the insurance sector. But it's incredulous that after 6 years and $18 million in excess of taxpayers' money, that we don't have a blood or blade grants to show for it. And being brutally honest, the public is being misled because they're touting 11 licenses or 33 licenses with 11 being granted, but they are being granted without any legitimate expectation of cultivation or production or sales happening anytime soon. And if we're to listen to the acting Minister on Agriculture, we must simply wait until the banking sector comes into line. But what has the government done to massage those sectors into the correct direction? Little to nothing. He's talking about conversations, consultations, telephone calls, emails. That will not work. We need a more hands-on approach. And while I cannot talk for the Rastafarian community in Barbados. It was striking that all of the other sister territories, Jamaica, Antigua, St. Vincent, I named them before, have embraced their Rastafarian community, have genuinely embraced their Rastafarian community. And the same cannot be said for Barbadians or the Barbados government, who has not embraced the Rastafarian community. So while I cannot speak for the Rastafarian community, I would only ask them to be cautious. To be cautious, because it highly appears that the nation is being misled, not just them. And if we recall, in 2022, the government made promises to the Rastafarian community in respect of a cooperative so that they can do cultivation, so that they can have production. But those things are fleeting illusions, to use Bob Marley's term, to be pursued. And unfortunately, this government's modus operandi, or the way they are doing things and handling this marijuana industry, it is unsatisfactory, and it will not work, point blank, period. It will not work. So while the Democratic Labour Party is fully of the view and understands that it is a $1 million industry and it does have potential to grow the Barbadian economy, it must be done with a proper structure. You have to have thorough thought through these things. But when we hear about the banking and we hear about the insurance sector not supporting these things, we knew from the get-go. We knew from the very beginning. Jamaica and St. Vincent, what we could say, according to Mr. Regis, who is the CEO of the Antigua Medicinal Cannabis Authority, they are the opening batsmen. Well, Barbados and the other countries are bringing up the rear. However, Barbados is very late to the table. We are very late to the table. And I don't see how government is planning to turn this industry around without the banking and the insurance. So it seems as though we're being misled. There's Barbados, the Democratic Labour Party is not interested in selling Barbados pipe dreams. And it appears that that is the way the government is doing things, and it's not acceptable. It definitely is not acceptable. In relation to one or two other things, I know we have a cohort of persons to speak. I also wanted to touch on the access to water for agricultural purposes. Now, this is one of the reasons why we are experiencing low production in Barbados. The agricultural industry needs attention ASAP, immediately. And we are not supporting our farmers in the way that we should. The Barbadian government has a mandate to protect and support its industry. Home drums beat first. And the way that the government has been doing things of late does not replicate that. We need to do something about our agricultural industry. Access to water, farmers are complaining about increasing wheat prices. Recently, we saw Gale's Hatchery said that they were going to decrease their prices. Thank you. However, we need more subsidies in terms of the water rates for farmers, persons who are registered farmers or are in agricultural production. We need some assistance providing the farmers with water tanks. Yes, that is great. But we also need to focus on how we can provide the farmers with some extra subsidy in relation to accessing water. And I think I will stop there for now, because I can talk about this all day, because we have a plethora of issues that need to be addressed. And people are vying there, they need somebody to speak on agriculture, and I'm here for it. I'm here to support the farmers. I'm here to speak on their behalf. And in the event that you are having any issues that need addressed, and you think that the DLP can help you, please contact me. Contact me, and I will see what I can do to assist the farmers in this problem that we're having with agriculture, because something needs to be done.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gilding-Bohr. We move on now to Andre Worrell, our spokesperson on health. Senator Andre Worrell. Mr. Worrell, my apologies.
Thank you, Rosemary, and good morning, and good still is to the people of Barbados, and also to the leader of the opposition. I just want to say that you are recognizing leadership here, because we have a number of persons at this table who are given an opportunity
to put their perspective on national issues. And you're not just hearing it from one person. And that is what the Democratic Labour Party is about. We are about allowing persons to have an opportunity to put their issues. And this morning, I want to speak to the country with regard to a major national issue in Barbados, which I have dubbed the national nightmare, which is the healthcare industry in Barbados. It is not just the Queen Elizabeth Hospital which has problems. It is every single aspect of the healthcare in Barbados. There are problems. There are problems within the psychiatric hospital. There are problems within the geriatric hospitals, the polyclinics, the drug service, and even if you go to the environmental health officers, which I'm certain many of you have not seen in your communities recently here. Now, these are all things that are causing a national crisis in Barbados, a national nightmare. Right now, I am certain that people are concerned from areas from Waterford to Pipe Corner to Oistins, everywhere in Barbados, people are talking about the healthcare crisis. One, you have persons who are just dropping dead. They're going to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital for service, and some of them die in the waiting room before they actually see a doctor. There are persons who are dropping dead on their jobs or at home in the marketplace, which shows that there is an issue with wellness and healthcare in Barbados. Now, last month, the Junior Minister for Health, he had a whole campaign of wellness in Barbados, which quite frankly did not touch many Barbadians. Because you cannot speak to Barbadians about bringing wellness, spend the average aspects that bring about wellness. Proper food, which Amoy spoke about in agriculture, health, exercise, and also healthcare, and also mental wellness as well. All of these are things that Barbadians are concerned about. How do you get fit wellness into your lifestyle as it is right now, where you are stressed out on your jobs, where you are maybe under pressure from your employer, because every 5 minutes, as Felicia would have said, you get a call, come and pick up your children from school. It puts you under stress at work and at home. Also, you are stressed out in the supermarket. The healthy food we simply cannot afford. And I did not hear the Minister of Health, who was speaking about wellness, address this issue. We used to have a basket of goods in Barbados. We need to get back to that stage where the Minister of Health agitates with his other cabinet colleagues to, one, show up agriculture in Barbados so that we have healthy food that we can eat. Two, meet with the merchants that the price of the things that are healthy, the fruit that you need to eat, the vegetables that you need to eat, that we can access them at a good price. You cannot get yam hardly anymore by the rod. Neither can you get sweet potatoes by the rod, and these are the things that people need to be eating. And I did not hear the minister address these things. He spoke about a health policy within schools in terms of healthy food, but you know what? It is expensive, and many of the parents and the children cannot afford it. What are we going to do about it? Do we still have, even within the school system, the milk program within the school? All of these things add to building proper nutrition. What is this government doing about it? So we cannot just speak about wellness unless we show people how we intend to implement it, and what that it in their pockets, that they can feel it as well and come on board with the wellness program. Next, we want to go to the nightmare within the healthcare sector. We need to have a national discussion in this country about the problems within healthcare. It is not good enough that people just simply call the call-in programs and vent, but there's no response from the ministry, there's no response from the minister. Healthcare is critical to Barbados, and the extent of the problem that we are seeing, it is high time that we need to have a national discourse on it. And if the government is not willing to do it, we, the Democratic Labour Party, through the office of the leader of the opposition, we will have that national discourse, because you cannot fix a problem unless you know what the problem is. And here are some of the problems. You have doctors and nurses who are leaving this country for greener pastures, and also to get away from the obstacles and the frustration within the healthcare system in Barbados. As a result, at the geriatric hospital, visiting hours have been reduced significantly because there's a shortage of nurses on the wards at the geriatric hospital. I would want the Minister of Health to come and speak to this, because many people, as a last resort, take their elderly persons to the geriatric hospital. We speak about not abandoning them there, but yet so you have a government that has implemented a policy where you can only visit them for 15 minutes at some point in time. Is that not encouraging abandonment of your elderly persons on wards? We need to do better for our elderly people, for elderly persons who need to be hospitalized here. And also, and this is happening because you have a shortage of nurses. Fix that problem so that people can get adequate care. You also need to give them stimulating activities while they're on the wards as well. So it's not just the QEH that has problems, but the geriatric hospital has a problem as well. And it's due to a shortage of persons leaving these shores to go off to greener pastures because for whatever reason, it is not cutting it here in Barbados. So the ministry needs to address that problem as well. You had a couple months ago at the psychiatric hospital where a patient died on the ward. Again, this was possibly due to the shortage of workers on the ward. The ministry promised to come back to the people of Barbados to inform them of what has happened. I have not heard the minister speak about it, so we are waiting for that report. We cannot fix issues by not addressing them and by burying them under the carpet. So we need to have the minister frontally come and speak to the people of Barbados about these issues, because he may not know all of the solutions. This is the second time that he was there as the Minister of Health. The first time he failed miserably because when we came to office in 2008, there were quite a few pieces of equipment on the grounds at the QEH which could not be installed because he did not see it necessary to have the proper electrical upgrade at the hospital. So do not allow him to do it again to the people of Barbados, where you do not feel comfortable accessing healthcare in Barbados. We also have a situation where doctors are leaving, and we need to speak to address the issue. Do we have sufficient specialists in Barbados to cover the areas? You're hearing people, they've been diagnosed with a serious illness and they have to see a specialist, and you're getting appointments 1 year from now or sometime next year, 6 months from now. This is not adequate. Do we have sufficient specialists in Barbados, or are we meeting our needs by depending on specialists coming in from other Caribbean territories to have clinics here in Barbados? These are the things that the Minister of Health needs to address. We have we have the medical school here at Cape Hill. Are we putting sufficient doctors into training? But do we need to start putting some of these programs onto the national scholarship lists so that we can get the persons? Do we need to offer a more attractive package that we can bring back some of our specialists who may be operating outside of Barbados back home to work? We also have a situation where patients are held to ransom as well, because the specialists may have worked at the hospital, but because of frustration left and opened up their own private practice. But the hospital may still need their services, and the hospital will have to pay them in order to get some of the services done at the hospital, have to pay them what they charge. Now, these are things that we need to address. Are we in Barbados looking at privatization of our healthcare system in Barbados by allowing a number of these specialists to go into private practice and then the hospital contract them for their services? You heard it oftentimes with the spokesperson at the QH advising citizens to go to the private healthcare facilities instead of coming to accident and emergency. So is that a form of privatization of healthcare in Barbados? But we pay taxes. We also have a health services contribution within the NIS as well. So I think it is unfair to Barbadians who are highly taxed not to be able to access proper health care in Barbados and be told that you have to spend thousands of dollars, which realistically, if a family member gets a diagnosis for something such as cancer, yes, we know the chemotherapy drugs are expensive globally, but we promised our people in Barbados that we would we will supply their healthcare needs. Do we not think that at this stage that since the incidence of cancer in Barbados has increased, that the government should be saying to persons not to put them on additional stress as to how will I be able to afford this chemotherapy or this treatment, or that I may have to, by the time my name comes up on the list, it may be too late for me. Government needs to work with the people of Barbados and develop a policy. None of us knows when we may face that diagnosis of cancer at some point in time in our lives. But we need to know that we have a healthcare system in Barbados that regardless, we are given the appropriate care in a timely manner, and not to the extent that it is only those who can afford it who can survive cancer. That is not the message that we need to send to the people of Barbados. We also need to come address the drug service in Barbados. Is the government of Barbados up to date in terms of the payment to the suppliers of drugs in Barbados? Or do we have a culture in Barbados that if the hospital runs short of an important drug, that some healthcare drug companies in Barbados are saying, you owe us, you have to pay cash for it? Again, could this also be a situation where we are privatizing healthcare in Barbados? Because I would like the Minister of Health to address this issue. Do we have a poor cash flow system in Barbados? I know that we encourage benefactors to support the healthcare industry of Barbados, but I think it is a bad state and not the type of governance that we expect in Barbados, where the government is solely dependent on some persons to pay their cash needs for urgent medication at some of the suppliers here in Barbados. These are things that the Minister of Health needs to address. They need to let us know where the healthcare contribution is going, how much is collected, how much is spent at the QEH, and how is that money allocated on a monthly basis, and how is it utilized. We have come to a state in Barbados where they may be excited by the Fitch upgrade, but for all of us here in Barbados, our lifestyle have been downgraded tremendously. Our healthcare system in Barbados has been downgraded tremendously, all because the government of Barbados is prioritizing cutting costs and raising revenue, and not necessarily trying to meet the social needs of the people of Barbados. We, as our healthcare system, is vital and important to the productivity of this country, to the wellness of this country, to the well-being of the citizens of this country. You cannot be satisfied to know that you cannot go to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital or the polyclinics to access proper health care, and that you are being forced to places such as Bayview Hospital, not to call certain names, but the private health care to urgent care and all of those other things. You need to have cash in order to do that. Right now, many Barbadians do not have the cash at hand. We just as cash poor as the government. We do not have the cash at hand, but we pay taxes. And the government needs to make sure that the people of Barbados, that they bring back some decency to healthcare. You should not have to spend a whole day in the polyclinic waiting because one doctor is working. And then to go to the pharmacy to spend another 2 hours waiting to hear that the medication that you need is not there. Not because there's a shortage, but possibly because the government has not paid the bill. All of these are things that we need to address. You also need to be able to assess physiotherapists, dentists. These are things that we don't talk about on a daily basis, but these are issues that people in Barbados face. So that is why this national forum on healthcare crisis in Barbados needs to be done, because you cannot fix a problem unless you know what the issues are, what the problem is. And every day, the number of calls that you're hearing in Barbados about people not happy with the healthcare delivery at the hospital, the polyclinic, geriatric hospital, the psychiatric hospital, even from the environmental health officers, it means that we are in a crisis. So we need to have a national discussion to come up with solutions for this crisis. And that is what the Democratic Labour Party is about. We are not about painting pretty pictures and cosmetic things and boasting about a one-notch upgrade from Fitch when the Barbadians are suffering, when Barbadians are dying, when Barbadians do not feel comfortable with their healthcare system. They think it's a national nightmare. It is part of the things that keep them up at night. And we need to address these issues. The Democratic Labour Party, we are building a Barbados for its people, not just for the rich, but for all Barbadians, whether you're rich or whether you're poor, because at the end of the day, even the rich ones still have to end up at the QEH, depending on the nature of the healthcare service that they need. So we need to make sure that our healthcare service can address the needs of all Barbadians. We need to hear from the Minister of Health, the Most Honorable Senator Dr. Jerome Walcott. Since he got the title, we have not heard from him. So we need to hear from him. And if he's not doing his job, maybe we need to move him. There may be possible conflicts of interest there. And that's probably why he's keeping silent. But the whole issue is we cannot have a privatization of our healthcare needs in Barbados. The rich and the poor, the man who has health insurance, the man who does not, needs to be able to walk into the polyclinic and get adequate treatment, needs to be able to get access proper mental health treatment. We also need to be able to walk into the supermarkets and buy the healthy, be able to afford the healthy foods. When you go in the supermarket now, it is easy to calculate your bill. Just multiply everything by 10. So everything you touch is $10. So 10, that's nearly $100 there. That is how we are shopping in Barbados. We cannot afford the lettuce. We hardly get it because the farmers are not being supported. We cannot afford the sweet potatoes because the farmers are not being supported. These are the things that we need to have a healthy diet. If the minister had come and said that he is implementing a program where you can get offering a wellness program and fitness program throughout the communities of Barbados that people can come on board, I am certain that that would have gone a much further way than all of what was said last month when they were celebrating wellness. Yes, we need wellness, but the people also need to be able to afford it as well. And they also need to have proper access to quality health care. We pay high taxes in Barbados, and we have a lot of skilled workers. Employ the nurses. Let them do the job. Give them the flexibility to do the job. Allow the doctors who are trained the flexibility to manage their department and to deliver quality service. And stop this practice of people having to go out to private practice or pay for services in the QEH which should be given. So we have a fair pricing and we need to discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Worrell. Thank you so much. We now move on to Neil Marshall. He's our spokesman on industrial relations and labor issues. Mr. Marshall.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Thank you to the leader of the opposition's forum for inviting me to this morning's presentation. Today, we will look at speaking on the issues of labour. As Mr. Thorne rightly pointed out, this country is indeed in crisis in almost every single sector that you can conceivably think about. Touching on something that he mentioned when he addressed the issue of water for the residents of St. Lucie, is that this is now several years that the Barbados Water Authority was to come under the scope of the Fair Trading Commission in terms of minimum standards for services. And that matter is a matter that really needs to be addressed if persons in Barbados or that institution is expected to up its game in terms of delivering service. Now, today, I want to reflect on a statement that was made by the Minister for Labour, in which he stated that the Employment Rights Act needs to be amended because it is tilted too much in favor of the employees. Now, what can you say about a statement like that? The Employment Rights Act, of course, initiated and passed by the Democratic Labour Party government, is a piece of social legislation. And social legislation, as we know, is meant to protect the weak and vulnerable from the strong. And therefore, those persons, anytime that the Democratic Labour Party, who has been responsible for most of the social legislation in Barbados, the vast majority of social legislation in Barbados, recognizes that there's an imbalance in the bargaining power and relationships between parties. This party will certainly move forward to address that matter to the extent that we can. And let me say to you that the Democratic Labour Party makes no apologies whatsoever for enacting social legislation. And we make no further apologies for saying that we are a social democratic party. And wherever it is necessary, this party will ensure that the workers and other vulnerable groups in Barbados are protected legislatively if we have to do that. So while we do agree in part with the Minister that the Employment Rights Act needs some amendment, it is certainly not in the manner which that Minister has envisioned. Because if we were to, of course, proceed along the line that he intends it to be amended, that you will have a complete upending, really, of the purpose of that piece of legislation. Our amendments, we do agree that there is a need for some sort of amendments, but those amendments really need to touch and concern only a few areas. One of them, of course, is that there needs to be set up a better mechanism through which many of the judgments of the Employment Rights Tribunal are enforced. Right now, that proves to be a very challenging aspect of the employment decisions and awards of compensation by the Employment Rights Tribunal. How are they enforced? And even though there is the boast of all the, I think it is some $1.2 million awarded by the, in compensation awarded by the Employment Rights Tribunal since between 2015 and 2021, the question must be, how many of those awards were able to be enforced? Of course, you only need enforcement if the employer refuses to honor the award of the tribunals. And I have had many instances where employers have not abided by the award of the tribunal, and persons, lawyers have been knocking their heads in terms of trying to find exactly where it is able to be enforced, whether through the magistrate court or through the High Court of Barbados. We know that decisions of the tribunal are appealable to the High Court, to the Court of Appeal in Barbados. But as it relates to enforcement of judgments, that is another matter. One of our amendments as well would also look at making some of the statutory duties on employers less onerous as it relates to very small and micro enterprises. That piece of legislation provides for very wide and detailed responsibilities on the part of employers. And we will have come to recognize that many of the very small and micro enterprises do not have the administrative ability or capabilities to conform with some of those statutory requirements. And that is one area that we have been given some attention to. I mean, you're asking some of these enterprises, it might very well be one person making some confectionery at home, or small producing, maybe not even having 5 employees or 2 or 3, and they're asked to conform with some of the very stringent provisions within the ERA, such as statements of employment, etc., and very detailed and particularized statements of employment. And one of the ways that could be the burden of some of these provisions could be eased, we must first set a category on the categories, a limit on the categories of employers, so that you have big corporations such as Goddard's and so on, have the administrative ability to do that. Where you have a man operating out through a small operation in his backyard and so on, it's not able necessarily to comply with that. Who's waiting on a son or a granddaughter or something to do up his book and type a letter and so on. Those are very onerous responsibilities to place on those persons. One of the other amendments that we would love to see, and I dare say, I take the permission of the leader of the opposition, should we form the next government, that there needs to be an additional compensatory element within awards granted by the Employment Rights Tribunal. In fact, what happens in Great Britain, if you look at their legislation, they take into consideration the manner and form within which a person has been dismissed. So that if you were in High Court matter, you could apply for aggravated damages. And the Employment Rights Tribunal, there is no such provision. And if the Employment Rights Tribunal, if you want to have employers take it with the very seriousness that it is intended to be taken with, that there must be a punitive element as well with the Employment Rights Tribunal, where they can award compensation because they don't award damages over and above that which is due to an employer. There was a story carried in the Barbados today, one of the publications on a discussion in relation to the Employment Rights Tribunal and the Employment Rights Act. And the call was made to elevate the status of the Employment Rights Tribunal. In fact, one of the retired chairmen made the point that it would be akin to spinning top in mud if the status of the Employment Rights Tribunal was not elevated to somewhere above that of a magistrate and close to that of a High Court judge, if not at the same level as a High Court judge. And the truth be told, I really don't know what that will achieve. At the end of the day, the very ethos of the creation of the Employment Rights Act and the Tribunal was to provide a simple, easy, and cost-effective way of resolving disputes between employer and employee. Unfortunately, it has taken on much of the aura of the High Court, where serious litigation, now with persons being sworn in and pleadings and all these things that form part of the procedures within the High Court now occur. And I mean, it is with regret. I am an attorney at law. The leader of the opposition is Isabella skilled in here next to me, but the lawyers are responsible for that. It has actually been transformed into a very onerous exercise now, akin to that of the High Court, Barbados with pleadings and so on. And therefore, I think that this party agrees that the Employment Rights Tribunal on the act needs to be set back to the footing, to be very written for its creation. In fact, it was designed that an aggrieved person could actually just simply walk in there once they've gone through certain processes and to present the case themselves, almost a tribunal of some summary jurisdiction. And they can have a decision almost immediate, if not within a very shortest possible time. So if there are supposed to be any amendments, those would be some of the amendments that the Democratic Labour Party would be looking forward to. We don't think that needs to be elevated any further. All it would do is, as far as I'm concerned, cost the taxpayers of Barbados more. Indeed, what we need really to look at is to start from the bottom up when we're looking at these institutions. And that starts with under the Employment Rights Act. That starts really at the level of the Labour Office. And it is no secret that the Labour Office is greatly understaffed and therefore overworked. In fact, many of the Labour officers who are responsible for the conciliation process, which is where every complaint to the Labour Office begins under the Employment Rights Act, is that the Labour Officer, the Chief Labour Officer, is to seek conciliation between the employee, the former employee, and the former employer. But where you don't have those Labour officers in the numbers as are required to engage in that conciliation process, persons get frustrated. Indeed, I can say to you with confidence that we have had persons as attorneys withdrawing their matters from the employment rights, from the office of the Chief Labour Officer, and placing them, once they're still inside the statutory limit, and placing them in the High Court of Barbados for a judge in chambers, or a judge in chambers to adjudicate over their dismissals. So that frustration, if there's any, does not come from the Employment Rights Tribunal not having the status of a high court. It comes from the ability, the enforcement of awards, and so on. Now, there has been much made about this phenomenon of zero-hour contracts. And let me just state from the outset, really, notwithstanding a contract of employment, notwithstanding the Employment Rights Act, is really a personal contract. It's really between an employer and an employee. But however, the employer cannot contract outside the provisions of the Act. Now, the principle, of course, for the lawyers here and everyone else, of contract is really, it must have certain core elements. Element of a contract is consensus ad idem, the agreeing of the minds. And those core elements in an employment contract really are: one, you must have an identifiable task; two, you must have what is your remuneration; and three, of course, is time or rate. So if it speaks of time and rate as being core elements of a contract of employment, certainly hours of employment must be a core element. In fact, let me say this here to you, that the Employment Rights Act itself makes the point that in a statement of employment, an employer must provide what are the normal working hours of an employee. So that is a matter that we will have to address, and I think I have put that matter to rest. Of course, there's a lot more that we can speak of, but at this time, we will leave it there. And at our next press briefing, I'll certainly enlighten you a bit more.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marshall. Before we go on, we have some questions coming in from our viewers, but I want to offer an excuse for Senator Ryan Walters. Senator Walters is away on business. That's why he couldn't be here with us today. I go to the questions. My first question is for you, Mr. Marshall. Are you aware of the number of non-nationals working in the construction industry in Barbados versus the locals? That is of a concern to me because I am a carpenter and I seemingly cannot get work.
Thank you very much for that question, because I am very much acutely aware of the number of non-nationals. And let me say this. When we say non-nationals, we must still categorize which non-nationals.
Chinese and
Indeed, non-CARICOM
says
nationals,
yes. Mhm.
who, as we know, under the CARICOM Treaty and the various agreements, have certain leave to work in Barbados for a particular period of time with the requisite documentation. But I have become aware that there are Colombians, Mexicans, let's just categorize them as Latin Americans, working in Barbados on certain construction projects. And I think that the Minister of Labour, if he is given the permission by the Prime Minister, needs to address, as well as the Minister with the responsibility for immigration, to address that issue as to what is the status of those non-CARICOM nationals working in Barbados and certainly engaged in employment such as carpentry, that we have more than sufficient competent Barbadians to perform. Indeed, matters such as their wages and the type of accommodation, because I have been made aware that when you live in not the best accommodations here, kind of barn-like, and so on accommodations. I should remind people that 2 years ago, under the same current administration, that there was a loud outcry in Barbados when some Indian nationals were brought into Barbados to work on Kensington and were living in less than satisfactory conditions. And while Barbadians may very well complain about the fact that non-nationals, and particularly non-CARICOM nationals, are being employed in jobs that Barbadians may very well be capable of doing, while those persons are here, we still do not wish to see them exploited or their conditions and terms of service being less than that of Barbadians. In fact, I've been made aware that the masons are being paid some $80 a day, when we know the going rate in Barbados ranges between $110 to $120 a day. It seems then to be a race to the bottom in terms of Barbadian labor, and that is a matter that needs seriously to be addressed.
Thank you. The other question goes to Senator Worrell. Being Barbados, we all know that we are an aging population. How would the DLP government address this issue?
Thank you, Rosemary, for that question. That is a very important question. Now, first of all, I think that we need to have a serious message, conversation about the age of retirement, because I am not certain that many people in Barbados are happy about retiring at age 67. But in Asian population, we have, I believe that our seniors are among retired persons are amongst the highest spenders in Barbados, because they have that time for recreation. So we need to have a number of recreational activities for them that they can do during the day, social activities, where they can give back. Also, we need to focus on that as well. Healthcare needs. When you reach that age, the arthritis starts, and the need for physiotherapy may come in. So we need to make those things more accessible to our seniors as well. The healthcare, the recreation, and the dietary needs as well. A number of persons too may come to a situation where they may need more care within community assisted living. We have the persons who the home health program, but that may also need to be expanded in Barbados as well, where we need to consider things like if you have a family member who may not be working, who is in a position to offer that care, do we need to bring in a stranger to do it, or could we make provisions that that family member would be able to do it as a form of employment? That would help to move away from some of the, not that the home health workers in Barbados don't do an excellent job, but to make sure that the persons get the best care possible and long-term care as well. All of those are things that we need to do, but just because you're getting old does not mean that you don't want to contribute to society. So we need to have a heavy focus on recreation, a heavy focus too in recreation, including things like exercise. A lot of elderly persons need to get out there and use the beauty of Barbados, the beach. The sea is good for the arthritis as well. So we need to make that more accessible to our elderly persons, getting to the beach, walking on the beach or walking in the water. That would help to reduce the incidence of arthritis. We don't want to get to the stage where they become bedridden, but if they keep active, you will that will, reduce the amount of persons who become bedridden and make them useful mentors as well. This is needed. This is another thing that ties into the 67 age retirement. Right now, what we need in Barbados is all of our grandparents going to schools to collect children, bringing them home in the evening, just as some of us came up, making sure that they do the homework. But if you have to work to 67, you don't have no time for that. And that is part of the problem that we are facing because our family structure has broken down because we are all consumed with jobs and earning and not recognizing the value of being able to give back. Give the elderly people that opportunity to give back and help to build their family and instill the values within their family.
Thank you much, Santoro. And this follows on to one of your points, follows on to another question. And this is for the leader of the opposition, beach access. Beach access has been a problem. People have been discussing the lack of access to beaches, especially on the West Coast. Are you aware of the situation as it relates to dwindling lack of beach access on the West Coast?
Yes, it has been a problem on the West Coast for many, many years. In fact, those of us who drive on the coast know that sometimes you have to drive, let's say from Walmer Lodge, which leads to, there's a public access to
Baines Bay.
not Baines Bay, Bass Rock. And if you bypass Bass Rock, you're going to have severe difficulty gaining access to any beach from 3 or 4 between them until folks even be yes. As far as folks, you won't find a lot of spaces there. That's been a problem for many, many years. Rose, it is extending itself now to the south coast as well, because there are several high-rise buildings going upon the south coast. And apart from the boardwalk, you are soon going to be out of access on the south coast as well. So that something that Barbadians have treasured, access to the beach, that is under threat. What can we do? We are not in government. Let us hear what the government proposes to do. But certainly, if they are going to be embracing tourism, and I remember the Prime Minister said this government's main ambition is to build hotels from the AF down to the harbor. If you're going to be doing that, what are you going to do for the locals in terms of access? So let us keep an eye on the government in terms of what they propose to do in terms of beach access. Hyatt has not got it, but Hyatt is still excluding access. The Hyatt site is still excluding access to a major beach, which blocks off the people of Bridgetown from going on to that beach, except for the other place up the street. Don't remember the name now. Sadly, yes. Although the young people seem to like that. But it is a problem. It is a problem in Barbados, and we're going to call on the government not only to address the problem, but address the people of Barbados as to this problem that conferences at present.
I have another question. I don't know which one of you will take this. You're Senator Worrell. What will the DLP government do to help our medical doctors who have studied in Cuba?
Right. No, this is a very unfortunate situation that has existed for a number of years. And it's a culture that we need to change. We have a number of students who have gone off to Cuba with scholarships to study medicine. And I believe that they should be given the opportunity to practice medicine in Barbados because they're exposed to a different level of training within the environment in Cuba. And we need to have as many specialists as possible and opportunity for exposure for a number of our young people. So I definitely believe that any Barbadian who has gone abroad to study, especially a Caribbean and CARICOM neighbor such as Cuba, that they should be given the opportunity to work within the healthcare system in Barbados and any stumbling blocks put in the way, because they also bring a diverse training as well and the resources because they would have done their training in a different environment and some of the techniques can be incorporated here in Barbados, especially in a situation where you lack resources.
Rose, Mr. Marshall would want to add to what Senator Worrell just said.
Yes, I was making the point, if I am not almost certain, that during the period of COVID, that Barbados drew on every resource that it could in relation to healthcare. And among those resources were Cuban nurses and Cuban doctors. And it is really perplexing. I wouldn't profess to know the nuts and bolts as to why there is this objection to Cuban doctors in Barbados. Cuba, which has actually prided itself in being in the healthcare sector, particularly pharmaceuticals in particular, leaders. But that is certainly an issue that needs to be seriously addressed. But we have to be careful at the end of the day. In fact, many doctors, in particular in areas of Africa and so on, have benefited from training in Cuba. And those persons have transitioned through whatever processes or methods they use, exams, etc., into the usual Western medical facilities such as the QEH and so on. So it's really perplexing, and I think that is about time that persons who went to Cuba, studied medicine, and did so with the blessings of this government through its bilateral relationships with the government of Cuba, that they now need to speak up on what is the issue preventing these students from being able to practice their profession in Barbados.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. I have another question here. And this person wants to know from Ms. Zujan, are you aware of the late delivery of school meals? This apparently has been happening since last term.
Yes, I am. As I said before, I have been making rounds at schools. Sometimes I do go just before lunch so that I do observe what is happening. Again, it is really a matter of the ministry ensuring that it reaffirms its commitment to the people of Barbados. Reaffirm your commitment to parents, reaffirm your commitment to teachers and to students. We cannot continue where we have students, and we have to be very mindful because we know that for some students, this is perhaps the only meal they have for the day. And so we have to be very reflective on that what we're doing is that it's an injustice to the child. So please ensure that what we are doing for our students and for everybody, and I think I wanted to touch on that point. Because when we're harming students, we're harming another Barbadian. And we have to remember that it is our people that we're hurting. It is our children that we're hurting when they do not get access to lunch on time. I have seen school meals come in after 1:30. children dismiss usually about 2:30. So that means that that child who may not have had breakfast may have had to spend the entire day on an empty stomach. And so these are the kinds of concern. And as I said before, I want, and I'm advising the Ministry of Education, not the minister, the Ministry of Education, the civil servants, be mindful that it is, reaffirm your commitment to the people of Barbados, affirm that commitment and reestablish and reconnect with our people, reconnect with parents, because the majority of concerns that are happening, and I just want to add on that, many parents call me because of the kind of concerns that they do not get the opportunity to communicate the concerns that they have that the children are bringing home. And I believe that the ministry, it is important that you at least give parents a listening ear, because some parents really do not know what to do. They are placed in situations, and sometimes the only outlet that they have is to go to the schools or sometimes place it on social media. So please allow parents to come and communicate what is happening. I know that there is stages and processes of communication that you have to speak with the principal, but I think sometimes parents do not feel that they're getting the kind of intervention that is needed. And of course, to parents, please do not go to the school looking for the teachers. It is not the way, and this is not what we would like to happen. If you have matters, very deep matters, the concerns that you believe that no one is intervening on your matter, please reach out to the opposition office or the Democratic Labour Party, and we will act on your behalf. There's a number of issues, and as I said, we are guided by the Education Act, and there is mainly two acts I believe that the Ministry of Education needs to take very seriously. Section 3 and Section 61 of the Act, that every child deserves to be in an environment which is safe and conducive. And that includes not only to be in an environment that is free from any kind of toxic or environmental concerns, but also that the child receive a healthy meal. This was part of the Democratic Labour Party's mandate, that we provide free school meals to our children so that they are healthy while they are learning. So if there's a problem with the school meals, entering the schools late or something, please work on it. Too many issues within the school system that we are to the point where parents are having a mistrust of the education system. We cannot continue that way. We have to continue to serve our people, serve our parents, because our parents work very hard. And for some of the parents that, as I said before, that you feel so frustrated that you go to the school and vent your frustration. We know that it's not the way, but I guess that sometimes we feel that you have no choice. But there are avenues. You can reach out to us. We will act on your behalf. And you know that I will act on your behalf. Just call me. I will be there. Because we are serious people. Because it's a serious matters that we're dealing with. And so we want you to know that we are there to support you. And if the school meals are not being there on time, let me know which school, and I will be there to ensure that that bus and that meal gets there. This is my commitment to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have another question. I don't know who will take this, probably Mr. Thorne, because it follows on about this issue of beach access. Are you aware of what is happening with the Civic Center at Whole Town? Is government looking to acquire, what's happening there?
Sorry, we understand, and government will confirm or deny that there's something of a swap arrangement that definitely government is committing the present civic center to tourism development, and I take it tourism development is a euphemism for the construction of a hotel or other tourism related matters, and that the civic center is to be relocated to the other side of the street. And we are asking government to be transparent and open with the people of Barbados and to say that it is understood that the entity that is purchasing the beach lands, or rather the civic center, will accept responsibility for constructing the civic center on the other side of the street. Now, that brings into question matters of market values. If you're asking the purchaser to build on the other side, is that purchaser getting a compromise market value for what he's purchasing on the beachfront? Government has to come and say that, because it is government lands, it is state lands, it belongs to the people of Barbados. So that if that person or that entity is going to be building on the other side, is he asking for a diminution of the market value of those beachfront lands? What about the quality of what the entity proposes to build on the other side of the road? Who is the client and who is the builder? These are legal questions that could create much difficulty. These swap arrangements between the state and private interests are always very, very riskful things to undertake. So that it is not only a question of a swap arrangement and making it seem so simple. There are legal implications involved. There are market value implications involved. And there are questions as to, will that entity feel obliged to build something of acceptable quality for Barbadians? So that I'm glad that the listener asked the question, but we can only provide so much as we have been told in a very limited way. This is now an opportunity for the government to come and tell the people of Barbados and those living in the diaspora what is happening to their beachfront lands that houses the police station, the post office, other ancillary services. I don't know if they still have a library there, but Barbadians need to be told what are the precise arrangements in relation to the future of that property.
Okay, and I have one final question for Ms. Gildenborn. What is the situation with the local chicken industry in Barbados? Is there a shortage of chicken or is there not?
Thank you for the question. Well, the vote still seems to be out in relation to the act. We've been hearing certain subsections of persons are saying that there is a glut of chicken and on the market that is causing problems. But now recently we have heard that there's a shortage, and we have heard a certain private distributor calling on persons, private farmers, to contact them to determine how much chicken that they have on surplus that they will be able to provide. It concerns me when we have a government that is putting such a monumental task in the hands of private company. Shouldn't government be doing that? So the issue with the glut of chicken or shortage of chicken, depending on who you ask, because that is one thing that we see repeating itself, misinformation coming from this administration. And yes, so we do have a problem with respect to the production and the handling of what is going on within the chicken or poultry sector. Farmers have expressed that they have issues with respect to the climate. We had Hurricane Beryl pass in the last couple of months. A lot of farmers had a lot of difficulties. A lot of the chickens died. So when we heard that there was a glut of chicken on the market, some of the farmers were concerned. And Barbadians are concerned on a whole now, because in quick succession, we're hearing now that there is a shortage of chicken. So then again, what is the truth? There's a lot of misinformation about this chicken and poultry issue. We've heard Mr. James Paul talk about it. We've also heard other representatives from the BSA talk about it. And I think the government needs to come clean and let the Barbadian public see the figures so that we can know exactly what is happening. Because we have to really consider our domestic production, especially with the chicken farmers. We need support in that area as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I hand over to Mr. Thorne to wrap up this public briefing, Senator Worrell has an announcement to make.
Thank you, Rosemary. I just want to inform Barbadians that the Democratic Labour Party will be in the community to connect with you tomorrow. We're not just speaking here, but we also want to go into the community to hear from you, your concerns. So tomorrow we'll have a community connection in the constituency of St. Michael Central, and the meeting point will be in the area of Abundant Life around 2:30. And then we will go into the constituency where we want to hear the concerns of the residents. So we spoke today on a number of issues, healthcare, education. We know that there are drainage issues within some of these constituencies. Raise your concerns, let us know how you feel. And then on Sunday at 4:30 p.m., the party will have a town hall meeting at the George Street Auditorium, and it's open. We're inviting the public to join us there. Again, we are focusing on the issues who cares for the people of Barbados. That is what we are focusing on. The Democratic Labour Party, who is taking care of us. That is what we are focusing on. And we will address a number of burning issues: cost of living, health care. This country is in crisis. So we invite you to join us tomorrow, Saturday, 2:30, Abundant Life for the Community Connection in St. Michael Central. And then on Sunday at 4:30 p.m. at the George Street Auditorium for our town hall meeting. And we want to hear from you, the people of Barbados as well.
Thank you very much, Senator Worrell. Mr. Thorne, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Ruth. And just to give the public the assurance, I mean, you've seen the evidence of it here, that there's a very healthy, very, very healthy group dynamic obtains within the Democratic Labour Party at this time, and that it will continue. I'd like to thank all of those spokespersons who came and were actively involved this morning. There are other spokespersons present with us: Ms. Howard, Kimar, Simon, Paul, that's I do behind you. So that we've had persons here this morning who were not active in this discussion, but they come to show solidarity with those who been actively participant, and that reflects Rose's very, very healthy group dynamic that obtains. We are getting stronger. We will be stronger. A few months ago, I said we are going to be ready, and some cynics did not believe me. Rose, we are on the way. We are on the road to readiness. Whenever the lady decides that she is ready to bring this country into an election, we are ready.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone, those who participated, the spokespersons, and you, the viewers, for watching and listening. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
It's 5:30. I do so.